What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update where we're going to go and look into the last 24 hours of Tottenham news. And there's been a really interesting interview from Ange Postecoglou on Opus Sport that has been released this morning. And I just get the feeling every time I watch Ange Postecoglou speak, particularly in this interview, I'm just ready to run through a brick wall for him, never mind the players. I mean, he's just such a motivating character, isn't he?
He knows what to say, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We've all been a bit down after the last 2 months or so, but listening to what he's saying, it's like, oh, okay, it's all going to be okay. So everything's all right. No need to panic. And it's like really calms me down when I listen to Ange speak.
I know, and I've been feeling a bit down about Spurs over the last week or so. And today, after watching that Ange Postecoglou interview, the sun is shining, the weather is sweet, we got smiles back on our faces. And one of the quotes from the interview I wanted to bring up was this. It says, what you got to remember is when I came in last year, the team had finished 8th, but it wasn't 8th of a team that was on the climb. It was 8th of a team that was heading in the opposite direction. Players were kind of getting to the age where they were ready for the next challenge. And then obviously you've lost a player from that team as well. So you go from 8th, declining, losing your best player. And by the way, we want to challenge the way we play from this to the other end of the spectrum. So all of those factors, I knew the process of building a squad, even the first 11, was never going to get done in 2 transfer windows. So, I mean, that does put a bit of perspective to where we're at as a football club. You know, people look at those first 10 games of the season, right, and feel like maybe that's where, maybe not where we should have been at, but after those first 10 games of the season, I think maybe people got lulled into a bit of a false sense of security of where we're at as a football club. And I think it has been quite evident by the end of this season that it is a long rebuild. This is kind of the first stage of a process. And maybe where our heads were at before those first 10 games of the season is more of a realistic measure to where we're at as a football club. And I think we just need to temper our expectations a bit more. And after listening to Ange speak, and you know, the first transfer window under Ange was a good transfer window, was a positive transfer window, getting in, you know, freshening up the squad, getting a younger demographic in, players like James Maddison as well, who are, you know, key parts to this project. If we keep going in that way, we are going to be all right.
And I think that's absolutely spot on. I don't deny that. I think we all would have taken 5th at the beginning of the season. We knew it was going to be a difficult season. It's just the context of how the season's gone is a bit troubling. That's and especially in recent weeks, that is the only worry for me. Why are we looking? Why is the last bit of the season, at the moment anyway, our worst bit of the season, when this is the point where you said the longest with the players, and there's also the point where we've had most of our players back fit as well. So it doesn't make sense to me. Again, it's not about us losing. I can stomach that. It's more about how we're losing, and that is the concern. But again, I'm not saying that I'm worried that Ange isn't the right guy for us at the moment, and he's not the guy that we should be really putting our full support behind. And I do believe this project can go to good places, 100%, and I'm very excited about the future under Ange Postecoglou. But there's no getting away from the fact that at this point in the season, I'm not saying we should be challenging for a title or anything like that, but we put ourselves in a good position to get to challenge for that top 4, and we have collapsed, and there's no getting away from that. And just because this is a hard rebuild, and just because of all these excuses that we have, and they're all fair enough excuses, it doesn't change the fact that we've looked a lot better throughout the season apart from this period, and that's hard to put your finger on why that's happened and why the collapse has happened at this point and not earlier in the season. Doesn't really make too much sense to me. But it is true that these results that we are seeing now, I'm not. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season this would have happened at some point in the season, I wouldn't have been shocked. I think everyone would have been kind of expecting that to happen at some point. It's just very peculiar that it's happened right at the end of the season, when that is the point where the system should have been more ingrained in the players compared to the rest of the season.
Is it important, though, because Ange was speaking about this in the interview as well, that is it important for you to look at more of the bigger picture than maybe just the immediate picture of these last 4 games? Yes, these last 4 games have been terrible, and you know, it's hard to put your finger on why it's happening at this stage of the season, but it is important, isn't it, to look at the bigger picture essentially than just like the short-term effects of these 4 results.
Of course, the bigger picture is always the most important thing, in my opinion, and I think in the grand scheme of things, we've had a decent season. I wouldn't go and say it's been incredible because of how badly it's fallen off, but at the end of the day, it's been a good season. We've improved massively in terms of the style of play that we're trying to do. You got to remember, as Ange said very rightly, it's not just a bit more offensive. It's the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like the low risk football to high risk football, like the highest to risk football.
The lowest to the highest, basically.
Literally.
Yeah.
So it's not like a small change; it's a massive change. And given all that change, I think we have done well to adapt and put ourselves in a position where we are challenging top four, and we're probably going to miss out. But at least we've even in that state where it's not been perfect and it's had a lot of troubles, and we still got a lot of work to do. We still, even all those problems, nearly got top four. So I think that's something to say how impressive that job has been. So I think the bigger picture is definitely positive and moving in the right direction. I just hope we don't take this little period. I hope we don't end this season in the way that we have and then take that into next season, because I've seen it happen before with teams that that end of seasons that can be taken into the next season, and I just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've seen other ways as well where teams do end the season sloppily and you can't really put your finger on why, and then they get new players in the summer and then it's kind of fresh and reinvigorated for the season after. So there are kind of two ways you can look at that, and two examples maybe you can follow, or not follow, but you can take from. Another thing from that interview which I really took some motivation from, or which I found really interesting, was Ange talking about what he's like on the training ground, and maybe when things are going well, he leaves it more to his coaches on the training ground to be really close to the players. But in times like this, he's the one that really wants to lead the players, and it's up to him to really guide the club out of this moment. And I thought that was really good, Ange, to say.
Yeah, that's actually quite reminiscent of, dare I say it, about Alex Ferguson, because that's what he used to do. When he was on the training manager, it's very well known that he wasn't the one always like barking orders on the training ground. He let his coaches do a lot of the work. But when it came to a lot of the man management, when it came to these kind of moments, that's when he would be a bit more of a figurehead. And so it's not uncommon for that to be the case. And it looks like Ange, that's his kind of style of management. And I hope that in these tough times, I was watching the interview. He said, "These are the moments that I'm here for. I'm not here because everything's going to be great all the time. As tough as moments, that's why I need to show up. That's when I need to be the manager that they brought me in to be. Otherwise, why am I here?" And I think that's really good for him to say. And that's what comes with a manager who has a bit of experience like Ange, because he's been around the block a few times. He said this period that we're going through now, it's not something he hasn't seen before. This is something that it happens at every club he's been at. You always hit a bit of a low point, and it's about how you get out of that, and he's excited about the challenge. And that's what you want to hear from the manager.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said before, if you haven't seen it already, go onto Opus Sport. It's on X, it's on various different social media platforms, and watch that interview. Brilliant stuff there from Ange Postecoglou. Let's talk about specific now and specific players. Tosin Adarabioyo. Paul O'Keefe says that Tosin has turned down an offer from Tottenham. Whether Tottenham return or not does remain to be seen. I mean, we've spoken about Tosin so many times, and I do feel he's a good player, but I do feel it's a bit of a wrong fit for the holes in the squad at the moment. So I'm not too fussed about this one.
Yeah, I like him. Obviously, it's the second time he's turned us down, so it's probably best we let that go now. But he's a good defender. I don't think it's going to be a deal that's like massively important to us. I think there are other centre-backs out there. I do think there are other centre-backs out there that would be better fitted to what we need as well. So I don't think there's any point crying over spilled milk, as they say. I think it's probably better for his career as well if he goes to a different club where he's maybe guaranteed first-team football week in, week out. So as much as I think he's a good defender, I don't think it's anything that we're massively missing out on that we can't improve on.
But does it worry you that maybe we're going for him even? Because if he doesn't fit exactly what we need, like, why are we even going for him?
Because he's free. Signing. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, which plays into the narrative though, like square pegs in round holes again. Like that's what we're going for.
Yeah, and that is a bit of a concern. I wouldn't say square pegs round holes, because we need another centre back, and he's a centre back. And if we feel he's the kind of guy,
we need a left centre back though.
Yeah, he can play there. I don't know. Look, maybe we're not so worried that he's not left footed. I guess that's all I can think of. Maybe it's a case as well that we've offered him a deal like as a, how we like to get multiple deals lined up and potentially push the buttons on what we really want, especially with Paratici in the background. So maybe it's that's the case. I, for one, he wouldn't be my first choice. I don't even think we'd be that interested in him unless if he wasn't a free transfer. I think there'd be a bit of interest, but I don't think we'd be desperate to get him. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's a concern that we're in for him, but for me personally, it doesn't make too much sense that we'd offer him a deal.
Another centre-back who we've been chasing, or that we've been linked with a lot over the last year, is Lloyd Kelly. And Santi Auna actually says he's on the verge of joining Newcastle at the moment, and he's actually a left-footed one, which I think would maybe fit what we need more, but it looks like he's going to be going to another club as well.
He's one I think is be a better fit, not only because he can play centre-back, but also left-back as well. And actually recently he's been playing a few games at left-back for Bournemouth and doing really well. And he's got quite good delivery. He's quite comfortable on the ball. Again, I don't think he's an amazing player. I do think, like, for example, that Calafiori, I think he's better than him. So if we can get him over the line, I don't think anyone would care. But again, another free transfer, probably Levy will be looking at it. Also homegrown. So they're probably looking at that deal thinking, is it a smart piece of business? But it looks like it's in Newcastle.
Let's move on and let's talk about Conor Gallagher once again, as Graham Bailey says that Conor Gallagher would prefer a move to Tottenham this summer over Newcastle. Gallagher is now set to leave Chelsea in the summer with just 1 year remaining on his current deal. So apparently he prefers a move to Tottenham over Newcastle.
Well, Graham Bailey's not the best source, I would say. But it's, again, a player who's in London. It doesn't massively shock me that he would rather stay in London than move up north, to be honest. It does surprise me a bit because of the rivalry between Chelsea and Spurs and how much of a Chelsea boy he is, whether that would really affect him. But modern day football, maybe these players are less interested in that side of it and more interested in what's good for them and their future. And I think if you take the rivalry out of it, I think obviously it's a bit of a no-brainer to come to Spurs rather than go to Newcastle. I think that makes sense. The only thing would be football sentimentality, and a lot of people think that's dead in the modern game anyway. So maybe that is the case with Conor Gallagher. I would also say he's been in great form recently.
Yeah.
A lot of people had question marks, especially in the early markings of the season when he was struggling for goals. Even though he was getting to a lot of goal scoring positions, he kept missing lots of chances, and people were saying, is this really the guy we want? But recently I think he's shown the potential that we've all known is there. A real good goal scoring midfielder who gets in good positions. He's so aggressive as well, so good at his high press. Still not the perfect player. I think he could work on a few things like his passing ability and stuff like that. Sometimes he can be a bit haphazard, a bit 100 miles an hour, and sometimes he needs to calm it down a bit. But he's still a young player and he's got bags of ability, and I think he would really fit the system like a glove.
If he does come in, who's the fall guys in midfield? Because you're looking at Højbjerg leaving, you're looking at Lo Celso leaving, but Lo Celso is more considered as maybe a 10. Højbjerg is considered more of a 6, but I look at Gallagher maybe more as an 8, but he has been playing a bit at 10 this season as well. So does he come in to replace Lo Celso, or is Bentancur going to be maybe a potential fall guy?
I think it's all about having depth in the squad. I definitely think he's come to play that number 8 position. I think him.
You got Bentancur and Sarr.
And maybe I don't know whether we see a different role for Bentancur potentially. Maybe he's going to be in the 6. I don't know. But it's all about having depth and numbers. And I think that's what Gallagher will bring. And I think definitely he'll be in competition with Sarr and Bentancur. On the face of it, you say we've got Sarr and Bentancur. Is he necessary? I think he's just got that little bit more offensive ability than those two. Where we're playing against teams, especially who play a bit deeper, and we need that extra bit of quality in that final third. I think that's what Gallagher can bring compared to Sarr and Bentancur at the moment.
Yeah. All right, well, that's Conor Gallagher. Let me know in the comment section below if you fancy signing Conor Gallagher this summer. Let's talk about Pedro Neto. Paul O'Keefe says that Tottenham have ruled out signing Pedro Neto this summer as the risk factor is too high for him. I mean, this is something I've been saying all along, even before this latest injury that he did get. Did he play on the weekend, Pedro?
He was said to have been on the bench, but I don't know if he actually came on.
Because
there was rumours he was going to
Yeah, there was rumours that he was going to play this weekend.
Start.
But in terms of Pedro Neto, this is something that I've been saying all along. He is way too high of a risk for the money that they were talking about, particularly, I think, 60, 70 million or something as that high. I mean, in terms of if you're just going to look at him as a player, he's a fantastic player and he's exactly what we need. But the risk factors was always going to be too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the worrying thing is he's had 2 quite long-term injuries now this season, and off the back of a few seasons where he's had long-term injuries. When he is fit, he clearly is a top player, and this season when he has been on the pitch, has probably been his best season of his career. He's been incredible, and he's a very exciting prospect. But if they're going to be demanding the amount of money they are, I think from Tottenham's point of view, it's just not going to be worth it when he's got so much of a risk with his hamstrings, and especially with such a quick player, how they rely heavily on that. I can see Tottenham definitely being scared off by that. So I think it makes sense, and I think Wolves, from Wolves' point of view, they're well within their right to ask top dollar, because he is a £70 million player. But unfortunately, his injuries are going to be what's costing him a big move to Tottenham, at least anyway.
Yeah, and other clubs as well, because there were a lot of other big clubs after him before this injury too. You know, the likes of Arsenal were linked with him. The likes of, I think, even Liverpool were linked with him. Unfortunately, I don't think he gets any of those moves now. Bryan Gil, let's talk about some outgoings now. Marca claim that Getafe are keen on signing Bryan Gil this summer. It seems like we're getting a bit of a bidding war going on for Bryan Gil. We've heard of the likes of Feyenoord out in Holland. We've heard of Getafe, and I think some other clubs have been touted about for Bryan Gil as well.
It's not the first time we've heard that. I think in January we heard a number of clubs in for him and then nothing ever happened. So let's just hope.
He didn't want to leave in January.
Yeah, and it looks like that is different. So I hope he gets a move for his career, because at the moment it's no good him being at Tottenham. And I think the more clubs in for him, the better. I do think a move to Spain will probably be the best fit for him. If I was advising Bryan Gil, I think that's probably the best fit for the kind of player he is, because I think in the Premier League he just gets bullied and he's marked out of games, and he's too easy to deal with. Whereas in Spain, it's a bit more of a technical league. Maybe that's something that would be more up his street. So I do envisage that will be the move he'd be getting. But wait and see. Does seem to be a lot of interest for him.
And last but not least, let's talk about Ben Davies now, as the Footy Insider claim that Ben Davies is set to be surplus to requirements this summer. The defender is a big influence within the Tottenham dressing room, but time at the club is now up. Ange Postecoglou is planning a huge overhaul of the squad this summer. Ben Davies, I think he's the longest serving member of the squad at the moment. Wasn't he Pochettino's first signing?
Yeah.
Pochettino's first signings. That's how long he's been here. So Poch joined, 8 years ago?
No, it'll be 10 years coming up.
10 years, wow.
This summer, it'll be 10 years.
Is he getting a testimonial?
Why not?
We don't do that anymore, do we? I mean, no clubs really give testimonials to players, but I like to see it. But in terms of Ben Davies and if I think he fits into the squad next season, with him going into his final year of his contract, I can see where he kind of does fit in, where if we do bring in someone like a Calafiori who can play left back and centre back, he can be the backup to him kind of thing in the centre back positions in his final year of his contract. But I can also see why they would want to offload him this summer as well, just get a few million in for him and move ways and move on pretty much.
Levy doesn't usually like to turn down an opportunity to make some money, so I think if there is an offer, I think we will probably accept it, and I think we'll be interested in selling him. He is now the wrong side of 30. As much as he's been a good player for us, and even this season, at times when he stepped in at centre-back, he performed quite well. I think at the end of the day, we're fighting a losing battle for Ben Davies to be what we need in that position, in my opinion. I think he's not physical enough. I think on the ball he's decent, but he's not like the best on the ball. Speed-wise, especially when he plays left-back, we saw how he got completely torn apart by Bukayo Saka in the North London derby. I just think he's not fit for purpose in that position anymore. So I think it makes sense to sell. As much as he's been a good servant, I like him. I don't think he's a bad player, but again, I think we can do better, and I think he's a player that is easily upgradable, and I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But that is all we have for you today. That is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we've talked about today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.